What's up? What's up? Welcome everybody. It is Saturday, the 6th of March 2021. This is Reality Decoded, brought to you courtesy of Shit Video Productions, filmed entirely live at the Thrift Store Studio, Toronto, Canada. Kaz, Trip, Nancy, Glynis are watching so far, and you've made my day already, Trip. You've already watched The Watchmen. Awesome. All right, pal. And yeah, I did a little bit of phonetic spelling on the northern accent for you there, Tina. I just realised you can see my T-shirt at the bottom of the thumbnail there. So anyway, let's get rid of that. Welcome. We are going through The Looking Glass tonight. Let me see. I've got my camera a little bit ski-whiff there. Let's move it back into position. So interesting that you have watched it. Trip. Sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit there, because we will be touching a little bit on The Watchmen this evening in tonight's presentation, where we are going through The Looking Glass, a little subject that I did plan to bring you last weekend, but we switched it up a little bit and brought you the New Manhattan Project instead. But we also had Devil Speak, wherever he may be tonight. May the force be with him. He was our guest caller last Sunday evening, and we also had his good colleague and buddy Murphy returning to the proceedings. She visited us once or twice at TSP TV. But anyway, during that presentation last week, the talk of time travel come on in the sphere within the sphere. Well, this is essentially a Looking Glass project material, and sort of very much within the realms of time travel that we have touched on in TSP TV before. So that is where we are going a little bit tonight, through the Looking Glass, to look a little bit more at some articles in regard to what it can do, how long it's been going, and what exactly they are using it for, and are they using it against us, and all sort of theories of time travel from the movies, from fictions, from books. Let's throw all of this together in the mix and look at the point, or look at the possibility rather, that if this technology exists, if they can see into the future, if they can test certain false flag psychological operations out in theory and see the outcome, they could tailor make and pick and choose the very best one for us. And something we have touched on as well before. Sorry, my hat's a little bit weird there. I always get strange when I see my eyes on the camera, but sorry, what was I going to talk about? We did mention a little bit at TSP TV. Are we choosing our own reality? Are all these things that we see on social media that maybe share or agree, maybe people aren't brave enough to repost, all this stuff, is this part and parcel of a larger program where they put these little things out, and then basing on how many people do share and agree, or how many people are brave enough to repost, those numbers come into the data collection analytical algorithm, and they go, okay, well, this looks like a good bet. Let's send this over to our good buddies at Area 51, see what they can do on level 4, section 2, that houses, which is known as the Alice floor, which is what houses of the Looking Glass technology. And Kaz, as always, we seem to start just as you're about to leave. So may the force also be with you through your proceedings of your employment this afternoon or today. So try not to work too hard, and don't let the fuckers get you down, as they always used to say. It's also a pleasure to see you. Be more pleasurable if you could stick on around. Maybe pull a sickie one time in the future. But as I was saying, all this sort of algorithmic artificial intelligence that is working against us, it's not our friend. It's not here to help us find directions to the best tacos in town. It's not there to help us get directions to the best lake or beach resort, or things like this. What it is there to do is surveil us, monitor us, then analyze and research what we are giving them, and then pass this over to the powers to be, who then can decide our fate. So as I was saying, are we choosing our own reality? And all these little things that seem to be circulating and saturating news feeds, are these just like the prompts, like, do you want to slay the dragon? Go to page 69. Do you want to run away from the dragon? Go to page 13. So the more people react to things that they see on the social media, this gives them then the food and the fuel, and or the ingredients rather, to design the false flag of their desire that can be the problem, reaction, solution. So lots and lots of strange shit going on. No more so than the Pope deciding to go to Iraq during the middle of a pandemic. Doesn't make any sense at all to me. But I only found out about this recently. I've had a bit of a strange week. We talk about that after the presentation. Stick around if you are interested. But it's been a bit of a dodgy week for me in particular. But I have been talking to Annie over at Prepper Chicks, and sort of her and I have sort of gone down the same rabbit hole, but sort of taken different tangents and gone to a different burrow, but sort of coming to converge at the same sort of conclusion. Our timelines have timelines been kind of ordered, just like in Back to the Future when they went back and then they come back to 1985 and it's all different and they had to go back again and change all the things that they messed up. Now, is this something that, if they do have this technology, why then wouldn't they use it, and what would they be using it for? And are people going back from the future to, maybe present day, or are they going from present day back into the past? And one of the theories of time travel is known as Shakespeare theory, and Shakespeare theory is kind of the principles that somebody from the future with all the works of Shakespeare went back in time, visited William Shakespeare and said, here, write these books. Who exactly wrote the literature? And something I've speculated and theorized on is, with examples to things like George Orwell's 1984, Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, H.G. Wells' The Shape of Things to Come, War of the Worlds, even The Time Machine, Jules Verne. Now, these were people that kind of produced science fiction way beyond the years in technology, or even, ideas of some of the things that they talked about within these books. So what if a time traveler from the future went back to those periods, said, hey, listen, H.G. Wells, I've got a bunch of work here, just ad-lib it a little bit, but stick to the script. There's some alien and time travel stuff in there. No, it makes no sense to you, but just write the book here. It makes sense to 21st century civilization. Same with George Orwell. Here you go, buddy. Write this book about communism, but make it about animals in a farm. And here's the Big Brother state. Call it 1984 or something. Just to pick the future of 100 years now. As I say, it won't make sense to any of you right now, but it'll make perfect sense in the future. Nancy, I wanted to watch the Watchmen Zoo. Had a hard week, although. Okay, let's try to translate that from the Cajun to the English. I wanted to watch The Watchmen too, but I had a hard week also. Don't hope for better weeks. Hoping is just the first step to disappointment trip. We are 1 year into this whole psychological operation known as COVID-19. And the Pope, as we said, is made a very surprising trip to Iraq. Is he just there for peacekeeping, diplomatic purposes, or is he there to keep his eye on the wall, or is he there to act as the elite's eyes in a situation where maybe something untoward has been found or discovered? And this is stuff I have been chatting to Annie with, and hopefully we'll be able to get her on as soon as promised as a special guest, a little bit like we had Devil on to talk more about this. But the reason I mention this is Looking Glass, for those of you that don't know, is supposedly time travel technology in the aspects that you can kind of see future, present and past all at once. And there are also theories and urban myths, legends, mysteries that people can indeed travel through these Looking Glass devices, a little bit like Stargates. And again, all these things from fiction that we're very, very familiar with. And, most of us Gen Xers, we can, escape Back to the Future and what an impact that had, not just on the 80s, but on the whole time travel genre in whole. And most people, I think, when we talk to people in modern times, we talk about time travel. Back to the Future is where they go to for their point of reference, but time travel in its concept has been around a long time. There's even sort of ancient scriptures to suggest that, in biblical times they were time travelers. And something again in Back to the Future, what would you like to see? The birth of Christ. He types that in, and, I think all of us, each and every one of us here watching now, at some point in time has thought about being able to go back to the past and maybe do things a little bit differently. Welcome, Mrs. L. Sorry, let me have a little look. What Tripp is saying about the Watchmen. I think it's plausible for a similar plot to be crafted. Well, Watchmen, Trip, is essentially Project Bluebeam. It is the staged alien invasion using sci-fi technology, special effects, cytronic weaponry, and a fake alien. And this book came out in it was printed in 1986, but it takes place in an alternative 1985. Now, again, within alternative timelines, could there be alternative 2021s? Could there be, like in the DC world or the DC universe from Batman and Superman in the Justice League of America realms? They exist with 6 universes. So there's an Earth 1, an Earth 2, an Earth 3, an Earth 4, an Earth 5, and I think an Earth 0, which is our Earth. And they also coexist occasionally with Marvel. Marvel and DC universes sometimes merge. So by possibly all these timelines being crossed and getting messed up, how much of an impact would that have on the world in general if people were constantly going back and tinkering and changing things, and those of us that have just lived throughout it would be unaware that changes have been made. Yeah, it is. It's not new at all. Now, the funny thing at the end of the Watchmen trip, there's when the very end scene, there's a TV on in the background, and they're talking about the Outer Limits, and the episode of the Outer Limits that they use in the Watchmen was actually about a hoax alien invasion. And Alan Moore was a big fan of Jack Kirby. Now, Jack Kirby, if you don't know, is the unofficial king of comics. Everybody went to Jack Kirby for their information. Stan Lee of Marvel fame, like, hey, I need help here, Jack. I got these characters. There's 4 of them. I don't really know where I'm going with this. Can you help me out? Boom, Jack Kirby comes in and helps him out with a Fantastic Four. But he depicted an episode or a cartoon story in a comic that was called Journey to Suspense, or Tales to Suspense, forgive me. And in that, he also told a story about a hoax alien invasion, and also believe in the Twilight Zone back in and around the sort of late 50s, early 60s. They had another episode where an alien visited the United Nations in New York and offered to, I'll give you all the cures to all the sicknesses in the world. I just need all the information to your weapons, and then turned his back on them. And there was also another story within, as I was talking about the Jack Kirby story, Tales of Suspense, about a hoax alien invasion where this guy sort of planned to pull off this invasion over a major city, but he got it wrong and it happened over a farm. The UFOs didn't go where they were supposed to go, and they ended up going over a farm, and only 2 or 3 people saw it, witnessed it, reported it. Because they were like farm country folks, it was dismissed, so it never really had the impact it was. But more importantly about the Watchman is the fact that Ozymandias, if you look at Ozymandias, he's got the pyramid everywhere, he's dressed in purple, he's got the gold, he's got all the Egyptian shit in it. In his background and his dwelling in his secret lair down there on Antarctica. And again, the Antarctica are these elites down there. Is that sort of the only part of the world that is untouched by this kind of time travel or blue beam or looking glass technology? Is that like their little safe haven where everything is fine and dandy, but all of us were just guinea pigs in the test lab that is the Earth? X-Files had fake aliens, and I have a feeling we would expect to see laboratory supreme being a force god of sorts. And again, kind of the Dr. Manhattan part of it is again very similar to the Looking Glass, because he is in at all times at once. He can see the outcome of what is going to happen to current events. But the fact that he had the ability to create anything from nothing, he did. He was essentially God. And sort of in the HBO follow-up series of the comic book story, he like leaves Earth in the aftermath of the Watchmen and just goes and creates his own universe from scratch. But very interesting series to watch. Hey, Thor from Venus. Not sure what that is about. Thor is from Asgard. He is one of the Norse gods, or if you're talking about another piece of fiction. But yeah, fake aliens have been, it's nothing new. But the Watchman, as I said, Ozymandias, he kind of represents the global elite. He is the most, he's the richest man on earth, and he's the most wealthy man on earth, and he kind of has a large corporation called Purple Pyramid, which underneath that he has all sorts of different businesses and enterprises, movies, sci-fi, blockbuster movies like that. He also has pharmaceutical, high-tech, electric cars, all these things. No, he'd been in. Sorry, I've lost what you're talking about there, Nancy. I think somebody about the White House in the 50s. Yeah, there was in the 50s there was one of the most famous UFO sightings recorded was a whole bunch of discs seen over the White House, and I think they also had that in an episode of Project Blue Book, which has been shown on History Channel a little bit recently. I'm not sure if it's in a third season or not, but it was 2 seasons. But yeah, I think there was back in the 50s. You're talking about the Twilight Zone, okay? Yeah, there was one where he went back to the White House. I'm sure of it. But what I was sort of trying to get at with the fiction part of things is, are they giving us a message, or are these things just pure fantasy? Now, with all these conspiracies, all these mysteries, all these sort of, Area 51, Bigfoots, Antarctica, even JFK, 9/11. If none of this existed, right, then it had to be invented. Now, if someone's going to an awful lot of trouble to invent all of these conspiracies to keep people busy or occupied, is that the purpose, just to keep people busy and occupied, or is there any depth in these conspiracies? They have to come from somewhere, and if there's no truth in it, then someone somewhere, or a group of people, had to conspire to make the conspiracy, making it a conspiracy in itself. Am I right? Yeah, well, we did have a great episode on Antarctica and the Hollow Earth and secret Nazi moon bases, but unfortunately that got a copyright strike. Excuse me, I need some water. There it was. I had something stuck in the pipe. Where's our dear baby P? There's a little half burp for her. But this is what I'm saying, guys. If this stuff isn't real, then who's inventing it, and what is the purpose of inventing it? But we do got a little bit of stuff to look at. It's not the longest of presentation. And to be quite honest, my heart wasn't exactly in it. It was a little bit of an effort just to get something together for tonight. Because I did say we'd be back again yesterday, which we weren't. A couple of you did send me some messages to ask me if I was doing okay. But as I said, let's wait till the presentation before we talk about that. Maybe a few more folks might tune in. I'm not exactly firing on all cylinders at the moment, in sort of a little bit hazy and foggy for some reason, which we will explain. So without further ado, before I do get too distracted, let's get the presentation on. As I said, it's only about an hour long today. We'll see this and then we'll come back and have a little chat afterwards, if that is cool with you. So the camera is off for now, and I will be turning off the microphone and joining you in the live chat right now.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make? The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
welcome to Through the Looking Glass, tonight's feature presentation here at Reality Decoded. And before we dive in to the articles of interest for tonight's feature presentation, feature topic of Through the Looking Glass, hopefully you guys enjoyed that little observation test that I put at the start of this little featurette. And the purpose that I did put that in there, little observation test for your enjoyment, was just to highlight that things can go on in absolute plain sight while we are distracted looking at the things we are told to look at. And it is sometimes a matter of looking through the distraction to see what is really going on. So, with that being said, let's crack on and dive straight into tonight's first article of interest, and it is from Monkey Elf, and it is titled Project Looking Glass: The Plans of Secret Government on Time Machines and Stargate Devices. And it was published 24th of April last year, and there is an artist's rendition of what maybe the Stargate Looking Glass technology looks like. I'm pretty sure that isn't an actual photograph, but Dr. Dan Burish, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, forgive me if I'm not, he has a PhD in microbiology, and he is a former employee of the United States Secret Military Forces. Burish holds disconcerting great information about extraterrestrials, the time machines called Looking Glass, in brackets Orion Cube Stargate, the plans of the secret government, and the extinction of the human race. Dark, disturbing stuff. And again, I'm bringing this for your own information and educational purposes. Make of it what you will. Do not take my word for it. Do not take the word of the author of the article. Just use this as information to make up your own mind as to what is going on exactly with regards to the Looking Glass. But Dan Burish was born in California in 1964, and he studied microbiology and psychology at the University of Las Vegas. Going to go out on a limb and say that might be a party school and not exactly of the same high caliber education as maybe Harvard or Yale. But nonetheless, he graduated in 1986 and earned a PhD in microbiology, and then in 1989 in New York State. So he got a PhD in Nevada, and he also got one in New York State. But he was a sportsman since childhood and played basketball, but his real passion was science, and at the age of 5, he was given his first microscope, after which he later became the youngest member of the Los Angeles Microbiology Society. Fun guy. I bet he knows how to party hard on a Saturday night. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, who knows. But there's a picture of him there, I'm guessing. But back in 1986, he received an unexpected visit to the University of Las Vegas from a so-called secret government of the United States. Two of those men in military uniforms offered Dan to work on a high-level project where he could have put his professional talent at the government's disposal in a context of maximum secrecy. In 1987, he began working at the Nevada State Government Office, and in 1989, he began receiving tissue samples. Burish examined them elsewhere and sent the report back to the place of origin. In 1989, he worked on a secret project and also on the so-called Sharp Storm. But in 1994, he was taken to an underground place called Century 4. I think that's Century 4 in Roman numerals, which is part of the Area 51 complex, where he started working on the Project Aquarium. And here again is another artist's rendition of what that looks like. Notice the purple there, guys, at the top of the picture, and what looks like a spaceship in some other little rooms of exploratory. But as I said, that is an artist rendition, not an actual photograph from inside Area 51, as those I'm sure are as rare as rocking horse shit. But he learned that the military was in possession of spaceships and extraterrestrial beings. And in one department, there was information about beings called Orions from Orion, and alien beings of the Z Reticuli star system. Think I'm saying that correctly. If not, forgive me. Some of these words are a bit bizarre. But then learned of a copy of the agreement made by President Eisenhower with two races, including the alien life form called P50 and the so-called Orion or Orionian races. In a place called the Bay of Galileo, Burrish would see different types of spacecraft. One of these aircraft was the ship that Bob Lazar, a former nuclear physicist who was in service in Area 51, and he described it in 1980s. Another of the ships he saw was one that crashed in Roswell back in 1947. According to Colonel Philip J. Corso, 1914 to 1997, who wrote the book The Day After Roswell, aliens are space time travelers, and those who lead the hull that fell in Roswell had two brains, one of which was useful for controlling the aircraft. Corso declared that the alien ship was the key to technological progress. And there's some more artificial renditions to look at there for your enjoyment. But Eisenhower met with several extraterrestrial groups who warned the Earthmen to abandon atomic weapons to avoid a future nuclear holocaust. This is the plot of the original The Day the Earth Stood Still, when a spaceship come to Earth, landed on the White House lawn, and a robot and a humanoid come out and declared that human race was set to destroy itself if it continued its pursuit in atomic weaponry. But diplomatic discussions between civilizations took place at this meeting, and an agreement was approved to abduct human beings for the purpose of studying them, provided that they did not have to suffer and remember nothing of their experience. The Orion ET races have given President Eisenhower a cube about 8 centimeters wide and another 8 centimeters long, capable of predicting the future. It has been passed between rich and powerful to choose well in their lives. And there was the movie with Christian Slater. I don't actually remember much about it, but it was called Gleam in the Cube, where he found some kind of cube very similar to this. And a show that I've been watching recently from Korea that is on Netflix. Why can't I say Netflix? On Netflix, called The Myth. Syphilis, The Myth, I think is its full title. But that features a very similar looking glass time travel device. People from the future being uploaded and then downloaded in the past. Most of them come back to try and remove regrets from their life, not necessarily come back in enrich their lives in ways they couldn't the first time round. But there also is a governmental agency called the Corrections Bureau that kind of hides under the immigration wing of the Korean government that deals with people, illegal immigrants from the future, because many of them come back with, purposes to win the lottery or stocks and shares. And this again might be something that the elites use in order to make their fortunes that much more larger than they have. Future technology, future information, a little bit kind of like when Marty McFly thought he'd bring back the Gray's Sports Almanac to 1985 and then place bets for the rest of his life and make his fortune. But we all know how the events of Back to the Future went, and there is a picture of the cube. But Burrish worked directly under the orders of the Majestic 12. One of his most important statements is that, related to the Stargate or dimensional portals, they are devices also made on Earth, but with extraterrestrial technology. Maybe a little bit of reverse engineering. Maybe the surviving extraterrestrials at Roswell, struck a bargain. Yeah, let's not be dissected and cut up our brains, and we'll tell you how to build time machines. But according to Burish, information on how to build the stargates is in the Sumerian tables that they used to communicate with other extraplanetary civilization, ancient aliens, for example, guys. But through these stargates, you could access a wormhole and therefore in a parallel dimension or in a spatial coordinate different from ours. Dan describes a Stargate who is in Area 51 by saying that next to this huge apparatus, there was a platform that allowed to throw the object inside the wormhole to travel to other stars, teleporting people or materials from one place to the other instantly. And there is another artist rendition of people waiting to line up to go through the Stargate, and the all too familiar depiction of a grey, benevolent alien. But Burish says he is not very reliable and he saw a person die during one of the experiments. This device is also known as looking glass and was used to see the probabilities of future events. As Burish declares, many wars in the East and other catastrophes would have happened because of these stargates. According to the Doctor, there are 50 stargates on Earth. Although the stargates have apparently been dismantled, today the human race is in real danger of extinction due to the many factors, including wars and severe climate change. There is a video here to watch, I believe, from Dr. Dan or whatever his name is, Baresh, but it is 2 hours long. And rather than not receive any more copyright strikes and have videos blocked as a result of this, we won't be looking at it. But there's a little introduction into the looking glass. But don't worry, guys, we are going to go and look a little bit deeper at it right now. Here we are with our second article on the looking glass, and here you can see the white rabbit equals code Alice. In Alice in Wonderland, the white rabbit is introduced as always running late. He carries a watch that is running backwards, but when viewed through the looking glass, it shows the time correctly. And also the rabbit does teach us to follow him, and is used in Monarch programming. Remember, copy and paste the bunny, but change what it's holding. Your little mind control experiment that some of you participated unwillingly in a little while ago to see how they can manipulate the minds of the masses with whimsical memes on social media. But when it's through the looking glass, it shows time is running correctly. Conspiracy theorists often use the phrase going down a deep rabbit hole when dealing with government and military cover-ups and the black op world. Well, there is a reason for this. The government uses the Alice Code and Project Aquarius and the Looking Glass Project at Facility S4 Area 51, which we did just briefly look into in the previous article, and we're introduced to Dan Buresh, who is sort of, I'm guessing, the founding father of speech or talks about the looking glass technology. But above the door frame leading into the lab that contains the looking glass project at facility S4 at Area 51, there is a stuffed white rabbit holding a backwards watch mounted permanently to the frame. Per Dan's comments, and that's the Dan that we just read about, Dan Buresh, permanently wired above the entrance to the looking glass laboratory, there was a large 3-foot tall statue of a rabbit symbolic of Alice in Wonderland. And this rabbit was described of having a clock in his hand and was wearing a royal maroon vest with gold fringes and black buttons. Bear in mind, guys, maroon is a little bit purple, and we do see a lot of purple in the skies and on TV, in movie posters and such forth these days. Can't get away from it. But on level 2 or 4-2, this was known as Alice's floor. This specific floor contained a laboratory for weapons research and development, 3 boardrooms and provisions for emergency supplies. Also located on level 4-2 were specific areas which conducted components which contained components for Project Sidekick. Level 4.2 was also the location for Project Looking Glass. This device utilized 6 composite electromagnetic fields and a height adjustable rotating cylinder, which is injected with a specific type of gas. The entire assembly can be rotated 90 degrees from horizontal axis. This allows scientists to warp the local fabric of space-time both forward or backwards by long or short distances relative to the present time. Um, the Project Looking Glass device was used to predict the potential probability of future events. There's another artist's rendition of the rabbit, and I'm guessing some of the sphere within sphere devices that they just mentioned that does gives the Looking Glass project the ability to work, I guess. But once the device is turned on properly, images of probable future events are projected in open space within the fields, similar to a hologram. The data output of the device, and in brackets images and in some case sounds, were then captured via high resolution audio video capture devices. In multiple probabilities of the same event were displayed, they could be interlaced by use of specific software platforms. Next to the Project Looking Glass device were 2 transport pads which could teleport physical matter or humans from one location to the other instantly, but not always reliably, and with certain disastrous outcomes during testing phases. Dan had the unfortunate experience of being in the room during one of those unfortunate outcomes and witnessed death, as mentioned in the previous article. Another thing I will mention also that is in the Netflix series The Myth, which is about time travel and teleporting people from the past, from the future to the past. There's only a 10% chance that you will actually survive the process, and there are many mutations and deformities where sometimes not all of the data is downloaded at the other side of the teleportation. So some travelers coming back from the future are missing limbs or a little bit disfigured or formed, like maybe if there aren't enough pixels perhaps to present the picture. But here is another little artist's rendition of the wormholes, the teleportation pads, the sphere within the sphere, and again the little rabbit there. I can't read any of the shit that is on that. It's far too tiny for me. But during Dan's time at S4, 5 concurrent programs were also being conducted. One named Project Galileo, and this dealt with the propulsion system of extraterrestrial and future extraterrestrial vehicles. Another program termed Project Sidekick, which Dan said relates to a weapons platform, but refuses any other comment on that project. Conveniently, but third project was known as the Looking Glasses, which we're looking at into tonight, and this dealt with time distortion. More specifically, this program dealt with the physics of seeing the effects of an artificially produced gravity wave on time. Um, the overall umbrella designation for the study of anything having to do with extraterrestrial biological entities and their interaction with humans on Earth was known as Project Aquarius, the dawn of Aquarius. This is the dawn of the age of Aquarius. I can't remember the lyrics, but you know the song, I'm sure. The fourth project was a separate weapons program developed as a second generation research project program from the Sidekick project that Dr. Dan refuses to provide the official name of that program. But the other program involved a suite of biological defense operations for which Dan worked in the capacity of a senior scientist. No further information will be provided for that program. There is another artist's rendition, some graphics of possibly the Looking Glass technology. Um, And that's what it says right there. Look, the looking glass device at area S4 level 42 used a barrel housed within the center hole of a donut shaped structure, something Devil Speak was talking about last week as our special guest caller. And a hive of information indeed our good friend Devil is. But during the operation, argon gas was sprayed into the center of the rotating barrel. A number of powerful electromagnets encircled the barrel, and as the power is fluctuated into the magnets and the orientation of the magnets is changed, it dials in to the probabilities within hyperspace, contacting two wormholes or connecting two wormholes to various probabilistic universes. Some very, very deep stuff here, guys. According to Dan and Will Uhouse, a direct witness to early looking glass operations during the 70s, the scientists working on the program quickly found out that the device was multifunctional. Though a variation of power settings and alignments, the device could produce images. It was soon determined that these images dealt with future events which might take place on Earth. According to Dan, it was soon determined that what events would be causation events for the ultimate splitting of humanity into what could become the J Rods and the Orion beings. That information from the Looking Glass was supported by the direct testimony of both the J Rods and Orion beings, according to their written and oral histories. It was further supported by the observation of data from the quantum cube, a gift that the Orionians gave to President Eisenhower back in 54. And if you remember, Back to the Future and my science project featured 1955. So that'd be 1 year after they had this technology, and maybe 1 year into their experimentation, and maybe, a reason for all these power outs that we've been seeing, firstly in California a year or so ago, and more recently in Texas during the freak storm they had there just a few weeks ago. Were they drawing power from the grid in order to power up these such devices? But according to Dan, the looking glass devices and stargates were dismantled in an effort to protect humanity. Based upon the totality of information collected, there were also several other efforts commissioned by Majestic to derail the potential sequence of events that would have led up to the catastrophe. And the doctrine of the convergent timeline paradox is well illustrated in the movie Back to the Future Part 2. And there's a little graphic of it, that once the sports almanac made it back to 1955 and Biff got his hands on it, the timelines went off in a tangent from the one that they returned to 1955 from no longer existed, and a new 1985 was formed. And is that what's going on now? Are we in multiple, has this time travel, has some of this experiences set us on parallel timelines and convergent in different directions to how it would have gone because people interfered with events in the past? And there is some more detailed graphics of it for you there, and some more artist rendition. Notice the purple, guys. And there it does look very similar to stuff of science fiction, Stargate in particular, the time tunnel, and also, the show I've just mentioned, from Netflix, which names I forgot now. The Myth. My apologies, brain farts all over the place. But yeah, The Myth also has a Stargate of sorts that is used to teleport people from the future into the present. But note the above depiction of the Stargate from the Hollywood movie. However, aside from some superficial similarities, the actual Stargates looked nothing like this. There was another looking glass device located elsewhere on the Nevada test site range. The earlier version of that looking glass device was viewed by Will Uhouse in the 70s. The two devices were required operating at the same settings for either of the two devices to emit sound associated with the probable events they were presenting as data. Dr. Dan, being a microbiologist and not having had further briefings about Project Looking Glass during the 1990s timeframe, could not specify why the two devices were required to produce sound. A flipbook was worn on the arms of those directly involved with the field of operation. The field operations of the Stargate devices. Not sure what the flipbook was all about. But within S4, all settings for the looking glass were achieved from the control room, so no flipbooks were required. This consisted of drawings and specific galactic positioning codes which were used to program the Stargate devices so that personnel could accurately determine their destination point once the device was in operation. And there's something to download for you there. And that concludes that particular article on the looking glass technology. Very, very interesting stuff, guys, as to what is going on there, and what is going on in plain sight that may or may not go noticed while we're distracted with other things. Are wormholes opening? Are timelines merging? Have they created paradoxes of time travel movie references that are playing out in real life? The Mandela effect is something that is very, very similar to what we saw in Back to the Future, where messing with things in the past will have an impact on the present. So, things like the Bernstein Bears, Sex in the City, Sex and the City. A couple of Mandela examples for you there. Are these the effects, or the effects rather, of time travel? You be the decider of that. Not telling you it is, not telling you it isn't. Just trying to bring some information that may lead to answers, but more than likely lead to more questions. So let's hang on a little minute and see if we can find something else of interest on the looking glass. Here is a familiar face for you, I'm sure. Nikola Tesla. And this little article says that Nikola Tesla time travel experience. I could see past, present, and future simultaneously. Back in the 1800s, Nikola Tesla, who was obsessed with time travel when he worked on a time machine and reportedly succeeded, saying he could see the past, present, and future all at the same time. The idea that humans are able to travel in time has captured the imagination of millions around the globe. If we look back at history, we will find numerous texts that can be interpreted as the evidence of time travel. When Einstein published the theory of relativity in 1905, it created a buzz in the scientific community, opening up a page for many questions such as time travel a possibility. Now, H.G. Wells in the 1800s, late 1800s, wrote a book, The Time Machine, in which a scientist of the late 1800s did indeed conduct a time machine, went to the future, didn't like what he see, come back to the past, took a few books with him to the future again, and who knows what happened to his exploits once he did return. But when he did get to the future, he found out that humanity had been split into two. There were the earth dwelling, surface dwelling Eloi that were very, very carefree, loving, promiscuous, just run around, frolicked, and didn't really work or do anything. That were in fact the livestock for the earth dwelling, under the ground Morlocks, who they really were cattle and food source. So a very, very dark and disturbing future indeed there. And are we being pushed towards that kind of society now, where humans will be bred for the food of the elites who live underground? Who knows? Maybe the looking glass has already told some secret high-ranking government officials of this eventuality, and maybe they are making preparations in secret. But as I said, time travel a possibility. H.G. Wells was talking about it back in the 1800s. This is stuff that's over 100 years old, people. And with technology and advancements that we have, nearly 150 years later, to be honest, and some of these books were written. But have we adapted? Have we now modified and used reverse engineering in order to make such technology of science fiction the stuff of reality. This is what Reality Decoded is all about, providing you with information for your education purposes to make of what you will. And by no means am I telling you that you need to believe any of this. We're just providing you information. There's also evidence of time travel in the Bible, according to Eric von Daniken. In the Bible, the prophet Jeremiah was sitting together with a few of his friends, and there was a young boy. His name was Abimelech. Abimelech, I don't know how to say that. But Jeremiah said to the boy, "Go out of Jerusalem. There is a hill, and collect some figs for us." And off the boy went to go and collect the figs. Um, and all of a sudden, Abimelech hears some noise and wind in the air, and he becomes unconscious. He had a blackout. After a time, he wakes up again and saw it was nearly the evening. When he runs back to the society and to the city, was full of strange soldiers, and he says, "What's going on here? Where are Jeremiah and the others?" And an old man said, "That was 62 years ago. It's a time travel story written in the Bible," says von Danken. But according to reports, in 1895, Tesla made shocking discovery suggesting that time and space could be influenced by magnetic fields. And a part of the admission had come from Tesla experimenting with radio frequencies along the power transmissions through the Earth's atmosphere. Frequencies, EMFs, radio waves, all stuff we've been talking a lot about here at Reality Decoded and at TSP TV prior to Reality Decoded's emergence on the scene as part of the Shit Video Productions Group channel and programming. But the frequencies and the electromagnetic radio wavelengths, all of this stuff, is it connected? Trying to piece the dots together, and these are all being pulled from the Earth's atmosphere. And are they have they got technology that is altering and disorientating the Earth's natural atmosphere in many ways? That's why we're seeing strange weather phenomenon. Who knows? But the technology that is at the hands of these elites, I don't think we really truly want to know about. And this is just the stuff that they let us know about that we are delving into now. So goodness knows what secrets don't make it to the surface or out of the rabbit holes. But the discovery would many years later lead to the Philadelphia experiment, along with time travel programs. However, a long time before top secret military programs were even thought about, Tesla had already made some discoveries that were fascinating into regards of the nature of time and the possibilities of being able to travel through time. Here is a little video for us. Let's see how long it is before we watch it. 41 minutes, so no, we don't got that long at all. Although it probably is interesting, and again, we don't want to get ourselves any strikes or videos blocked by our friends at the YouTube Community Standards team. God bless them. Truly, they are heroes to humanity, all the work they do preventing people knowing things that they don't want them to know about. But the experiments of Tesla in high voltage electricity along with magnetic fields led him to discovering that time and space may be deformed, so essentially create a door that may lead to another time. With this discovery, Tesla went on to discover through his own personal experiences that traveling through time came with some real danger, especially if you were to go back in time and fall in love with your mum before she had you. A little bit Back to the Future again there. But Tesla was said to have been hit by 3.5 million volts of electricity. And the very first experience that Tesla had with traveling in time occurred on March 1895. A New York Herald reporter wrote that he found the inventor sitting in a cafe after he had just been hit by the 3.5 million volts of electricity, and the reporter said that Tesla had told him that he would not be very pleasant to be company due to the fact that he had almost died. He went on to say that a 3-foot spark had jumped in the air and hit him on the shoulder. Tesla
went on to tell the reporter that if it had not been for his assistant turning the power off straight away, he would have been killed. He went on to tell the reporter that when he was in contact with the resonance from the electromagnetic charge, he found that he went out of his space and time window. He said that he had been able to see the past, the present, and the future at the very same time. He admitted that he had been paralyzed in the electromagnetic field, and so he had been unable to help himself. Thankfully, though, his assistant had been beside him and had been able to turn off the power before any severe and permanent damage had been done. The incident is said to have been repeated in the Philadelphia experiment by the US Navy, something we've looked into over on TSP TV before now. And we also looked into this kind of goings on at the Montauk facility, the real life Stranger Things. But many years later, the repetition of the exact same incident occurred during the Philadelphia experiment. However, this led to sailors being left outside of the window space reference for a long time, and this of course had results that were disastrous. Some of those sailors were said to have been merged within the walls of the ship. But the Philadelphia experiment was the alleged military experiment which was said to have been carried out by the US Navy in 1943. It was said that the escort, the USS Eldridge, had become invisible to enemies. However, the US Navy has always said that no such experiment happened, and the claims of the ship become invisible did not conform to any physical laws. And that is the end of that little article on Nikola Tesla and his experience with time travel and reference to the Philadelphia experiment. So, these were all experiments that were carried out. Maybe, with any experimentation, there are successes and there are failures. Have they, had more failures than successes? And are they trying to maybe go back and rectify some of the failures that are in fact opening up new and different divergent timelines, and thus creating parallel Earths and alternative universes? Let me know what you think in the comments below.
Well, this is what it looks like. This is real. Yesterday and today is the very first public unveiling in a public presentation of Project Looking Glass. A human being is about this tall. This is built in underground bases. It is colossal in size. And what happens is when you fire this thing up, these rings start going in all different directions. It shields off the barrel of water inside, which is just like your pineal gland. The water inside flips over into time-space, which then captures argon gas, captures visual images, and this is what it looks like. It becomes huge, glowing, all the way out to these posts, which are used as stabilizers for the energy field. Now, it doesn't start out with an image of the Earth. That's just there as a placeholder, although you could see the whole Earth like that if you wanted to. That's not usually what happens. Well, contact, right? We have been given the technology right in front of our faces in the movies. They just don't tell you what it's for. In what? 13 Ghosts? Well, thank you. I'll have to check that one out. Doesn't sound like a movie I'd want to see, but if it's for that, oh, I can imagine. So, Contact, just to recap from yesterday, blueprints come in from the Vegans, from Vega. They figure out that it's only when you fold up these patterns into a cube, which forms what there in the center, the triangle with the eye in the middle, as it folds up. Cube geometry, that's when you can decode the plans to build this, these rings, which becomes this machine. And there's your little helicopter. There's another shot of it. They got computer animations of how it's going to work with the different rings moving. This actually looks like the fisheye lens distortion effect that happens around the looking glass when you power it on. There's a gantry crane up at the top, and the little guy is dropped down and goes inside. That's like your barrel inside the mechanism there. And this is where all the action happens. This is where the Stargate opens, the wormhole into the higher realms. In this frame, we're seeing how the whole thing collapsed and fell apart. So, of course, you want to take a ride. You know, the new the new formation of the one after the old one breaks. And here we're seeing the new one. Once again, you get a very clear view, and there's your little eye with the rays coming off it, just like the all-seeing eye on the dollar. Not surprising. Here she is. It's even larger than the real one, standing on this ladder, looking down inside. This is the chamber and the chair inside, which we'll see is very important. And here's your geometry. Look at that. Did anybody notice that when you were watching the movie? Because it goes by pretty fast. That's that same geometry that's in the background radiation of the whole universe with the sphere in the center. They fire it up. Guess what happens? Big, bright luminosity, just like the real thing. The real thing that they're actually using and have been using since the 40s at least. And here's what it looked like from the control room. It gets brighter and brighter, and she starts having the floor disappear. She gets dropped down inside, and then, of course, she goes through this wild wormhole ride, and there's an ascension experience at the end of the dream. The Iraq War had, to a large degree, the mission of capturing a looking glass technology that was dug up in Sumer, which was originally in the possession of Gaddafi in Libya, which is why they attacked Libya. Gaddafi got rid of it and gave it to Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was using this technology, viewing the future. The U.S. government went in after him because they felt that the fate of the world was at stake, because if they did not capture this technology and get it back and deconstruct it, that the Earth would have a pole shift. But when you actually decipher these letters, it means the doctrine of the convergent timeline paradox. Here's the problem. You look through time with this device, and when you hit 2012, everything goes perfectly white. As you get closer and closer to 2012, starting in around 1980, a very strange thing has been happening when they use the looking glass. There is an interlacing of images. So right now, imagine that if I had this slide on half the time, and then the other half of the time, there was an image of like a face. And if I interlace them slowly, then maybe every second it goes from here to the face to here to the face. Then as it speeds up, it gets faster and faster to the point that if it were complex images, you couldn't make out one from the other because they're flip-flopping so fast. Okay? That's called interlacing, and the frequency of the interlacing gets higher and higher as you go towards 2012. So anytime that they try to look at, like, or they used to try to look because they're not using them anymore, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, bam! It's so interlaced that they have a whole server farm of computers just to deconstruct the two images and be able to see what they're looking at in the future. So again, this is what they're using. This is one of the main ones they're using, the Orion cube as they call it, or the cube. And also it's being used with looking glass. But what's going on with 2012? Well, here's another very interesting thing. We have multiple parallel futures that we can choose. And 2012 literally does represent create your own reality time. It has everything to do with what do you expect is going to happen. This is where thoughts becoming reality really takes on a whole new meaning in a way that you've never heard of before. So what they found that was so bizarre was that at December 21st, 2012, they could calculate it down to the day. That's how precise this was. That for some reason, all the graphs, all the waves would go into a complete flat line. They no longer moved up and down like before. They went flat for like 7 or 8 seconds. So then they're asking the guys that went through these stargates and were traveling into the future, what happened to you? Every single time that somebody tried to hit 2012, they said the same thing. There was this thing they called the bump. It actually hits you like a bump. You actually feel like you slammed into something. And as soon as it slams into you, you have the most incredible religious experience you can imagine. Cosmic consciousness. Your consciousness just blasts into this wonderful place where you have awareness of no space, no time. All knowledge is available to you. Ecstatic God consciousness. You could be the galaxy. You could be a subatomic particle. You can go everywhere, do everything, and there's no sense of it ever ending. So when it finally stops, you just can't even believe that you're back to who you were before.
That's what happened to Jodie Foster.
Exactly what happens to Jodie Foster in Contact. So,
And is that the moment of no time?
that's the zero time, yeah. And Daniel doesn't agree with me on this, but I believe that 2012 is our zero time reference. And when you hit 2012, everything goes perfectly white.
That was an enjoyable little visual break for you, and that was a little presentation from 2007 from David Wilcox talking about the Looking Glass project, and in reference, he was using a fictitious piece of work, Contact, starring Jodie Foster, a movie I haven't actually seen for some time. I might have to go back and watch again in reference to this topic. But another piece of fiction that I've mentioned more than once is The Watchmen, not only because it kind of depicts stroke predicts a false flag alien invasion, it also has a character of the name Dr. Manhattan, which essentially is the Looking Glass technology. So there is a picture of him sitting up on Mars as depicted in the classic 1985 Watchmen. Actually come out in 1986. It was set in 1985, but there is an image from the comic book back in the 80s of Dr. Manhattan sitting up on Mars. At first glance, the world of The Watchmen seems tired of superheroes, and the new HBO series, which isn't new, it came out in 2019. Very interesting because it does take place, as it says quite correctly here, 35 years after the events of the 1980s comics. Please do not watch the Watchmen movie. It is absolutely, the first part is pretty much picture perfect of the Watchmen, but after that it just goes off on its own tangent. Please read The Watchmen, as I've mentioned many times before, and there is also the animated comic book version on YouTube that is available free to watch. Please watch The Watchmen. It will explain a lot. But as I said, the HBO series does take place 35 years after the events of the 1980s comic that saw a huge false flag staged hoax alien invasion on Manhattan, killing 3 million people in the process using telekinesis and psytronic weaponry. But the original Watchmen, written by Alan Moore, tells a story of an alternative American timeline in which mass numbers of masked vigilantes fought crime before they were outlawed in 1977. But in The Watchmen's alternative 2019, Richard Nixon is now on Mount Rushmore. Squids occasionally rain from the sky, again using teleportation technology to continue with the narrative, or the false flag narrative, that the Earth is under threat from aliens, and this is how they try and keep control in that alternative reality. But superhero activity is very, very much illegal. Yet there is one superhuman figure who casts a shadow over the series, even though he hasn't officially appeared, and that is Dr. Manhattan. This is in reference to the HBO TV series, and this is an older article, but I'm just using it because it does have a good explanation of who Dr. Manhattan is. It isn't very, very long and uber nerdy for some of you that may lose interest in uber nerd topics, but the character is briefly introduced on the show's episode It's Summer and We're Running Out of Ice, where the camera pans to a live newsfeed with the headline reading Dr. Manhattan on Mars, and on the screen a grainy satellite video shows the glowing blue figure demolishing a giant sand structure simply by raising his arms. Dr. Manhattan was a major part of the original comics, and he is the only one of the Watchmen's vigilantes to actually have superpowers. But who is he? And to say he has superpowers is an understatement. He has god powers. And we just heard there how sort of David Wilcox was talking about the bump, and how people that were in the Montauk chair using the Looking Glass technology had a religious experience. Well, that is kind of exactly what happens to Dr. Manhattan. He becomes, as I said, a god.
But his character was first introduced as the mild-mannered John Osterman. When he was a teenager, John was shaken up after witnessing the Hiroshima bombing, and he decided to become a nuclear physicist and not follow in his father's footsteps of being a watchmaker. But in 1959, he was accidentally called in a radioactive particle test, and at the lab where he was working, although he was initially vaporized and declared dead, part of the scientist's consciousness began to take a new material form. 3 months after the initial accident, he reappeared as a giant naked man with blue skin, and Dr. Manhattan was born. The name Dr. Manhattan was given to him by the United States government, and he was used as a puppet or a pawn of the US government as the ultimate weapon. Um, but his new form came with a huge array of special abilities. He could see his future and past from a third person perspective, and also had powers including telekinesis, teleportation, and flight. Teleportation, again, is something that is commonly used in reference or spoken of in reference with the Looking Glass project. And he could also replicate his being into sentient copies. Soon, John became a pawn of the US government and was given the codename Dr. Manhattan into the reference of the Manhattan Project, the research that developed the atomic bomb. His main involvement with the government is the reason why the world of the Watchmen is so fundamentally different to our own. Dr. Manhattan's capacity to see through time, combined with his ability to order materials, led to a fictional 1985 that was much more technologically advanced than the real world at that time. At President Nixon's request, he also used his abilities to help America win the Vietnam War in only 3 months. Um, Despite working for the government, Dr. Manhattan associated with many costume vigilantes of the time, and he began dating Laurie Yuspecovich, who moonlighted as the vigilante Silk Spectre, and he worked closely with billionaire Adrian Veidt, aka Ozymandias, who was widely considered to be the smartest man alive and the richest man alive, and it was Adrian Veidt Ozymandias who indeed staged and carried out the false flag hoax alien invasion on New York City, as depicted in the 1986 comic book series The Watchmen, written by Alan Moore. Um, but Veight's intellect made him the only human who truly fascinated Dr. Manhattan, but the man came to see his superhuman friend as a threat to international stability, and at one point in the comics, he even exposed Dr. Manhattan's associates to radiation that gave them terminal cancer, an effort to blame their conditions on Dr. Manhattan and discredit his powers. And it was this stage of event, this was all part of the series of staged events that got Dr. Manhattan out of the picture in order for Veidt to carry out the false flag hoax alien invasion on Manhattan. And they were eventually, the fears were eventually realized as international tensions rose over America having its own secret weapon and leaving other countries at a disadvantage. In Dr. Manhattan could pretty much dismantle bombs the moment they're launched from far away without so much as a thought. That's what made him the ultimate weapon, but there's also his ability to see all moments of time at once, similar to Tesla, very similar to the Looking Glass project. That does suggest to me that the Watchman tells us so much more than the fact that there might be a false flag staged hoax alien invasion carried out by the world's elites and the industrial military complex that they control. But had he left the United States, as I said, had the secret weapon in the form of Dr. Manhattan, and it was because Dr. Manhattan left Earth over the guilt of his friend's cancer that Veidt was able to enact his plan, stating an alien invasion to stop the impending war and kind of bring about world peace. Once the invasion happened, the Americans and Russians at the time realized that there was a threat greater than each other, and that threat came from outer space, even though it was a staged hoax alien invasion. Many people didn't realize this. Only a couple of people that were close to Adrian Veidt unraveled the mystery, unraveled the secret, and promised to keep their mouth shut, except for Rorschach, who refused to compromise and was killed by Dr. Manhattan. But after he succeeded in killing 3 million people and forcing the world's terrified governments to reconcile, Dr. Manhattan and the other heroes agreed to keep secret to maintain the peace. Dejected over his failure to stop Veidt, Dr. Manhattan kills a former friend and leaves to start a life in a new galaxy that he creates for himself. So that goes on a little bit more about his character in the HBO series, which is very enjoyable, although not really the Watchmen of Alan Moore, but nonetheless it still give a little bit of a tingle to the fanboy senses. So that is a little bit of who Dr. Manhattan is, and as I said, he pretty much is essentially the Looking Glass project. He can see all moments in time and thus give his reportings and findings to the US government, and it was his technology and his abilities that kind of helped the United States become the world leader that it was within the fictitious world of the Watchmen. But is Looking Glass technology being used by the United States government at the moment? Are the elites allowed access to this technology in order to increase their wealth and increase their power on the civilization as we know it? In something that we heard in David Wilcox's little presentation there was, we are getting to the stage where we are choosing our own reality, and something we have mentioned before here at Reality Decoded and TSP TV is, are we choosing our reality? Do they provide us with probable futures that we react to in real time that then become our eventuality future? Thoughts and things to ponder indeed. So that's it, guys. Let's wrap things up there with the Looking Glass, and let's return right now to the Reality Decoded Thrift Store studio, where we will commence proceedings live. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you're still listening, Nancy. We did, you tried my hand. I said you're 2 emojis away from a timeout, and you 2 emojied me. So you went and got yourself a timeout. So let that be a warning and a lesson to you, our lovable little Cajun agent. But let's get the camera back on. Let's get the thing out the way. Look how close I am to the screen. That's a bit scary. And as for you, Darcy, maybe we will make some rules up just for you if you don't behave yourself. But it's all love and smiles. We're playing around, and hopefully little Nancy's 300 seconds are up, and she'll be back with her full force of emojis any second now. But that did seem to go by awfully quick for some reason. But never mind. Usually we do have a little bit of a longer presentation, but this was sort of put together a little bit late in the day and somewhat half-hearted. There you go, Glynis. You see, a little bit. You have to have a little bit of discipline within the structure, in the educational surroundings of things. Think of me as Michelle Pfeiffer in that Gangster Paradise movie. You're the troublesome kids, and I'm the out-of-town teacher coming into the ghetto neighborhood to try and teach you some lessons or two. I'm not trying to teach you anything. I'm just sharing my thoughts and opinion and some information on stuff I find interesting. And there we are. She's back with a big broken heart. There you are, Nancy. Was that painful for you for 300 sec? Of course, I mean,
Sooner or later, you'll realise I'm just an asshole with an accent. And we did see that little Martha crawled in a little late in the day. Sorry about your relatives keeping you busy, but at least you got to see your relatives, I guess. And as I'm writing, thinking Texas has lifted all of its bans and stuff on restrictions, and you're sort of a little bit back to normal, or is that a hearsay? I already know. Okay, simmer down there, Cajun. Simmer down. But what was I going to say? I don't know. I've forgotten. It's been a bit of a weird and strange week for me. But that was a very, very quick presentation. So I sort of threw it together a little bit late in the day today and didn't really give it the time that I wanted to. But it was a sort of case of putting something together to put a presentation tonight, because some of you do look forward to them, although I wonder why exactly that is. But for those of you that do look forward to these presentations, I am trying to bring a little bit of regularity and scheduled programming here at Reality Decoded for your information and educational purposes. Is anybody else here? There you go. Thank you, Darcy. I thought everybody left and it was just Nancy trying to catch up for her 300 seconds that she was timed out all at one go. Type get it all in. My son scammed me out of $4,000 yesterday. Good for your son. How did he scam you? Out of $4,000, Darcy. As I said, with regards, I left to go smoke outside. Yeah, I just went and smoked outside during that presentation and got back like, holy shit, it's nearly over. Oh my God. But as I said, it wasn't exactly the most, I didn't put an awful lot of effort into it. It was sort of put together a little bit late in the day. Now, in terms of the week and why we didn't come on yesterday, God, during the week, for a little while now, I haven't been able to sort of sleep properly other than catnap a couple of hours here, a couple of hours there, fall asleep sometimes at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, wake up again at midnight. I'm awake till 7 in the morning, sleep till maybe 11 or 12. It's just not getting, a solid amount of sleep. Now, once upon a time, I used to have a little bit of a dependency on sleeping pills. I've spent many years, and a decade, in fact, working shift patterns where one week I was working nights, the next week days. It was constant jet lag, and the only way I kind of managed to adjust myself was through sleeping pills, and I got a dependency to them. Now, during the week, I was sort of just feeling absolutely lethargic. Every time I woke up, I felt more tired than when I went to sleep, and I just wanted a nice, solid night's sleep of undisturbed. Not getting up every 10 seconds to take a piss, not fucking tossing, turning the pillows up the other way. All the stuff you do when you can't sleep. You know what it's like. So I decided to take it upon myself. I'm going to do a little bit of self-medication. I want a night's sleep. I want a good night's rest. I want to get myself sort of out of that always feeling like I don't want to get out of bed kind of mode. And some of you may be feeling the same. So Wednesday, I went to the pharmacy and bought myself nothing sketchy. I didn't go to sort of back alleys and sort of secret handshakes and get any sketchy sort of narcotics. It was all pharmacy bought. I bought myself some sleep aid pills, and I guess it's been some months and months. It's pretty much nearly a year since I last took sleeping pills. I sort of give them up not long after I sort of was out of work, and towards the start of this pandemic, I certainly sort of weaned myself off of them and have been sort of sleeping okay, but not exactly great. So anyway, I kind of took my regular sort of routine of getting myself to sleep and didn't get to sleep. So I ended up sort of playing, if I take two more, maybe I'll sleep. If I take two more, I sleep. To the point I took nearly the whole packet, and I guess I sort of inadvertently overdosed. Not fatally, obviously, because I'm here and not all overdoses are fatal, but I put far too much of that shit in my system. Still didn't get a night's sleep, and somehow wasted a couple of days in the process of just sort of being a fucking monged out zombie. And even today it's still sort of in the system a little bit, so that's why we didn't sort of come live yesterday. I did have all intentions of doing so, right up until yesterday, and just was very, very groggy. The after effects of putting like a whole box of sleeping tablets in my system at once. But I guess the good thing is that my body has weaned itself off of these things, and it rejected that shit. And I guess that's what happened. My body was rejecting it, and the more it was rejecting it, the more I was putting in, and kind of poisoned myself a little bit, or over toxined myself a bit. And as I said, I'm still really, really sort of groggy and not exactly fully awake tonight. Sadly, I don't trip. I sort of, it makes me feel a little bit more relaxed, but I've never ever had a smoke that sort of put me to sleep. And as I said, I've always needed a little something in the past to get me through this. And normally as well, something I do through the winter months is sometimes self-medicate a little bit just to get myself through the dark, depressing days of winter. And this winter's been more dark and depressing than any winter I've had before in Canada. Although it hasn't been the coldest by a long stretch, it's still been pretty bleak and miserable considering all the stuff that has been going on. And I think that's just basically why I just wanted, not necessarily to check out, but I just wanted a few hours where I could just sleep and not fucking have to worry about it. And it's not a good place to be when you're sort of not sleeping and you sort of get a little bit irritable, I guess, and you don't think too clearly. I'm not even thinking too clearly now, so I'm trying to sort of read your comments. But yeah, bong smoke. I've been smoking since I was 15 years old. It doesn't really have the effect that it once did in that terms. If I do that, I wake up with a headache. Well, I always sort of seem to have a constant headache and a constant ringing in my ears. And we were sort of, in that presentation we heard about like that they use argon gas in cylinders. Now, a lot of these like sort of fluorescent tube lights in the the neon stuff. Some of you guys jinxed yourself. You got a couple of each. You owe each other a couple of Cokes or something. Unless, of course, you've been caught up in the memetics this week in boycotting Coke because they said you've got to be stop being more white or something. I can't remember what they said, but a lot of people have been ranting on about Coca-Cola this week and how they're not going to drink it anymore. But I like Coke. I had a Coke this evening. It's my favourite beverage, actually. I'm not going to stop drinking it. And I actually do go out of my way in the summer to be less white by getting a suntan. So there you go. Make of that what you will. But these things that are around us, and again, the electromagnetic frequencies, radio waves, Wi-Fi, mobile data systems, all of this stuff is surrounding us. We talked about, I've always got a ringing in your ear. Some of you guys have mentioned you've always got ringing in your ear. I always seem to sort of get a dull pain in the left side of my head, and occasionally, sometimes when I use my phone extensively, when I'm doing a lot of recording and editing and stuff, usually after about 5 or 6 hours of being in close proximity to my phone, my head is absolutely pounding. And all these things that are around us, we hear of unthinkable, unimaginable weapons, are things we take to granted, like light bulbs in a transistor radio. Are they like really weapons of mind control, or we see they have the ability to, or the way the body behaves and the way we react and think to certain things. Yeah, you're always dizzy. That goes without saying, Nancy. But if we did that about the stuff, we will get sucked into the cancel culture. And this is a little bit, like what I'm talking about, the share and agree culture and the memetics of it. The more and more people that follow and agree and share this stuff, this is sort of what is creating our reality and creating our society. And this is how they are ordering the minds. You don't necessarily have to hook us up to all this technology that exists. They can just influence our thoughts through the power of suggestion. And due to the fact that, since the dawn of social media, the dopamine effect has been introduced, and dopamine has a narcotic-like effect. It's very similar to taking drugs, and it becomes very addictive. and millions of social media social network users are unaware of the fact that they have a dopamine addiction. And the dopamine is you get dopamine from when people like your posts, or like the things you say, that spurs a little bit of dopamine. And when you get a notification, that gives you dopamine. So the more stuff you're sharing, there's the more potential. So subliminally, you've been programmed to share and share and share because you're looking for dopamine hits. It's very much like a crack whore. She'll suck as many dicks as she can suck in a day, as long as she can put a rock in her pipe and twist that pookie 2 to 10. It's a very similar, it's a drastic comparison, but it's not too different. We're just out looking for our dopamine. And as I said, this week it's been very, very rich and ripe about Coca-Cola, in what they've said there. But again, all of these things, are they the tools of manipulation that are part of a much scarier technology that is working against us? And is all of our data being put into possible future? Okay, so this is all what they're saying today on the 6th of March 2021. So with everything we've collected, what will the outcome look in 6 months from now, in 12 months from now? What, the voices in your head keep asking you if you want 5G? Not dizzy, but headaches a lot worse than others. Now, do your headaches come like in one side of the head, or are they in both sides of the head? Because another thing, I've got this very, very bizarre here on my left, like, scalp. You know, I shave my head, look, they're ugly. It's about here. It feels like I've got sunburn when I use the razor on it. It's very, very tender just in and about there. And I also get like very sort of sinusy in and around the left side of the nostrils. Now, is this just seasonal stuff? Is this just, a little bit of dehydration, perhaps, too much sugar, not enough vitamins, not enough sunlight causing headaches? Or is this a product of all of these devices that are around us? And all these devices, are they just designed to control us? Yeah, same as Glynis. I mean, I can't remember the last time I didn't have ringing in my ears. And it's permanently there. And sometimes during the night, I almost feel the pitch change. And as I said, are these things... Oh my gosh, I have a spot like that on my head too. I think that's mostly shadowing. I've only got the one light on there, but... Or you mean you've got a spot on your head that feels like sunburn? Is that what you're saying? And what is causing this? I mean, there's no sun. It's not turned on because the vultures roost on it. Well, maybe it's a placebo tower. Maybe they're just putting them up to make them think that's what it is, when really it is all around us. And another, I do keep meaning to put this into a presentation, the principles of 7 generations. And I don't think 5G is what we think it is, in terms of they're upping the power and upping the frequency, making it more powerful. I actually believe it is the 5th generation of digital influence over humanity. And that's why we did a little bit of the 1985 Decoded episode special, because the 80s was the first generation of digital technology. It was when it became accessible. We all had digital watches, we all had Walkmans, we knew someone who had an Atari, people had cable TV, people had VHS, satellites. All of this stuff started getting put into the household. We started seeing synthetic furniture. These neon tube lightings. I remember in our house, get fluorescent lighting, it's so much better for you, and all these like long tubes and things. And sometimes if you listen, you can hear the bulbs glowing. We're pretty sure you have ringing in your ears, Nancy. Some say it's from the sun electromagnetic pulses. Who knows? But the sun gives us vitamin D. The sun brings life. Are they just blaming the sun for technology? It's hard to point the finger. We can't really blame the sun. We've got no control over the sun. But if you put a whole bunch of satellites and shit in the air that can fire down beams of electromagnetic wavelengths on the populace below, then you could blame the sun, because we wouldn't know any different. And again, maybe some of the devices that are around us are causing these things. We never heard of these things existing way back in history, that sun's electromagnetic pulses are causing William Shakespeare to have ringing in his ear. No, I mean, I don't know if he did or not, but it is all sort of seems to be a very sort of modern technology. Now, the other sort of thing that could be occurring is a disruption of the two timelines merging, or alternative universes becoming entwined. And that is a little bit about what was in the third Cloverfield movie. If you remember, they were up in a satellite and they were pissing around with some experimentation, and somehow they opened a wormhole into another realm, an Earth 2, for want of a better description, and the two started to merge, and sort of the people that existed in one dimension and stopped existing in the other. They always blame the sun, and most of them, well, I worship the sun. I really do. If when the sun's out, I lie and bask in it all day. And being born and raised in and around sort of stone circles in sort of the sort of pagan Mecca, I guess, for want of other words, Stonehenge. I have been influenced a little bit with paganism. I guess, well, I'm not a pagan, but they sort of do have a bit of a more grasp on reality in their beliefs, not so much magical goings on is their sun, but the sun god. Well, yeah, quite a few people, the Aztecs, the Egyptians, even the Romans and Greeks worshipped the sun before modern religion come along. And bear in mind that Christianity is one of the most modern religions on the block. Now also we have Scientology. That's probably the newest of them all. But yeah, once upon a time, every religion used to worship the sun one way or another. What are you saying about anime, Glynis? Did you get to watch any of that? Because I mentioned last week we did the Asian Fiction Decoded special, and you said that your little teenage daughter is a bit of an anime maniac. So maybe or not you suggested those series to her or not. I don't know. But with Realms of the Looking Glass, in terms of fiction, The Myth, currently playing, it's ongoing, it's up to episode 5 on Netflix at the moment. It is a South Korean show, you will have to watch with subtitles, but fuck me, it is one of the better time travel fiction that that you could see probably since Back to the Future. I don't think there's been a good time travel movie since Back to the Future. I mean, Bill and Ted wasn't without its charm. And Hot Tub Time Machine, I guess, wasn't bad, but nothing really give us Back to the Future, right? No, sorry, comments are getting a little bit waylaid here for some reason. Now they've gone completely. Oh, they vanished. That's where your comments should be. See my comment above. That's why I'm having difficulties. I've lost the comments. Let me try and get them on the computer. Anime. Sorry, how far above have I got? Now I've got echoing in my ears. See what you've done, Glynis. You've knocked me off of my groove. I'm trying to find your comment above. T, my daughter is telling me lots of Amen's shows stopping on Netflix because of the leases are up. Anime, okay. T, my daughter's telling me lots of anime shows stopping on Netflix because right. Okay, well I don't use. That's what you were talking about. All right. Yeah, I don't use Netflix. I use an app called CineHub. It's there, CineHub. Actually, I use 3 or 4 different apps. But here you can see it's CineHub. You go to the movie section. There's all your movies. Go to your TV section. There are your TV shows. So this is the show I'm talking about, Sisyphus, sorry, the myth, and that's all about the Looking Glass. He's a guy that invents the teleportation device, but they send people back from the future before he invents it. Very Sarah Connor, Terminator, go back killer before she gives birth to John Connor. John Connor can't lead the resistance to human victory against the machine. Cine Hub, like his cinema, Cine Hub. Hold on, I'll tell you what. Can I share it? Yeah, sharing is caring. For those of it who want it, the link is there for you in the description. But be warned, you can't use it if you have iPhone. It is only for Android devices only. But with Cine Hub, you don't need Netflix, you don't need Disney Plus, you don't need Hulu, you don't need YouTube Red, or whatever it is. That's the paid premium version of YouTube. They sometimes put films and series on there. In fact, you don't need any of the paid streaming apps whatsoever. Everything is there on Cine Hub for you to watch absolutely free. You don't even need to sign up or give them any email information. But you will have to go to your settings on your phone and allow third-party applications to be put on. But if you have an Android, go and download this, cancel all your subscriptions, save yourself some money, stream for free. There are a couple of them that I do use, but Cine Hub is very similar to how sort of Netflix works, but it's a very good application, and I've been watching pretty much everything on there in recent weeks and months, and for a year or so now since it's been around. But the myth is, as I said, if you do have Netflix or if you do get Cineflix, start watching it, because it'd be quite fun as a group project to hear what you kind of think of it while we're watching it together, if you guess what I'm saying. But again, it's fascinating because, you know, the idea of teleportation and being able to drop things into this device and then make them appear elsewhere is very Looking Glass project, stuff that we've been looking at tonight, and probably will look a little bit more in the future. So we are now 1 hour 45, so let's try and wrap this up at the 2 hour mark. As I said, I'm still a little bit groggy. I still got a fucking shitload of sleeping pill medications going around in my system, but I did have a big meal today. That felt good. Got a lot of sugar into my system, trying to hydrate, and hopefully tonight I will, fingers crossed, be able to get some sleep. But the other thing, in reference to Asian fiction, there's a hell of a lot of Asian fiction in the last 2 or 3 years concentrating around time travel. Hell of a lot of them. There's a Korean remake of Life on Mars, which a present day detective somehow got into an accident and wakes up in 1986. And there's another one I'm actually currently watching in between The Myth, because it's serialized. It comes out 1 episode a week. I think it's going to be 10 episodes of The Myth, so jump on board. We've got 5 episodes. We can talk about it in real time. But another show I'm watching is called The Tunnel, and it's about a cop from 1986 who's chasing a perpetrator down a tunnel and ends up in present day Korea. Ciao, Darcy. Hopefully we'll see you again. You could also always plug it in, but if you don't, or out of reach of a socket, then don't worry. No, I'm not planning to, Nancy, and it was sort of like a little bit of a relapse, I guess, on my part, and I don't know why on earth I thought it would be a good idea to dose myself up on sleeping pills when I haven't done so for months and months and months. Well, we're just talking about the Gusset girls arriving, because we're about to wrap things up, and there she is. Welcome, maiden. Glad to see you, sweetheart. here at Reality Decoded. But yeah, no, I don't intend to, Nancy. And as I said, it was just a little bit of a maybe attempt of a desperation to just get a decent night's sleep and not be catnapping the way I am. Yeah, the maiden, we did put Nancy on a timeout. I did tell her she was 2 emojis away from a timeout, and her next response was 2 emojis, so she got timed out. So where it's going to be, I'm afraid, Nancy, you're only allowed 10 emojis an episode from here on out, so use them sparingly. But yeah, no, we're not going down the self-medication route again. But anyway, maiden, if you don't know, you are late. I sort of inadvertently overdosed on sleeping pills and was out of the game for a couple of days. It sounds bad when you say overdose, but if you take more tablets than you should, then you do you have overdosed, and it did, because they haven't been in my system for so long. I guess it had adverse effects and it did the opposite. I still didn't even get to sleep, which was the worst part of it, and feel worse worse than I did. So lessons to be learned, but at the time it seemed like a good idea. That's why there wasn't a show yesterday and why I haven't been around much this week, maiden, to be honest. So that was Wednesday. In your dreams, Nancy, I don't love anything. I'm just here for the violence. I don't even love myself enough to not take sleeping pills to the point of overdosing. But if that makes you sleep at night, Nancy, you believe whatever you want to believe in. Is it always the way then we get to try and wrap these shows up? The numbers rise, and I'm sure it is the algorithm, but I'm not really exactly as sharp as I should be. And I keep saying, "Oh, we'll be back next week," and then we're not back next week, and I really need to make sort of an effort to keep, not because this is important or anything. It just gives me a little bit of a purpose and a routine in something to break the monotony up from, and maybe sort of just lounging around in sort of mooching and feeling sorry for yourself is another reason that you're not sleeping well. So maybe put in a little daily routine and try and get some exercise and stuff. Might help, but I will try and come back again tomorrow night, and we might even do a bonus Monday scenes we missed yesterday, and hopefully, I'm not promising, we'll be able to bring Annie from Prepper Chicks over to talk a little bit more about what we've been seeing this evening. If or not this stream gets blocked or not, we will see. It probably give us 10 minutes once we end the broadcast. I might get an email to tell me that it's been blocked, as all 3 of the streams last week have now been blocked. You can't watch any of those now. And then here we go, there's another person just to write 12. So who is the 12 people that are watching? I know Darcy left, Martha, Glynis, you're still here, Maiden arrived, Trip went out for a smoke. So don't be shy, the 12 of you. Or was that just the algorithm making up the numbers to make me talk a little bit longer for whatever? We love UT. Well, love is only a temporary thing, Nancy. Even with husbands or children, there was a period of time before they come along when you didn't love them because you didn't know they existed. And then when we cease to be in this world, we take that love away. Although the people left behind might still love us, our love is gone. Sorry to be dark and destroyer there. But anyway, 12 people. Not bad. It is nice to hit the double digits, but unfortunately I don't think this was one of my more interesting shows, and possibly because my heart really wasn't in it to start with. It's sort of a little bit ago. It's kind of when you're having sex with somebody that you've been having sex with for 10 years. It's not exciting. You just go through the motions and you're sort of a little bit on default. That was a little bit what today was, just reading some articles, but didn't put much effort on my part to add to the articles themselves. But my apologies for that. But it was, as I said, rather than have another day where I sit around and don't do anything, let's try and get a little bit of productivity and do things. All we have is the moment. The only thing we truly own is the moment. The past is gone, the future is not to be. The here and now is all we really have. And there's a little bit of that community spirit, I guess, that sort of you guys feel in the chat is not necessarily coming to listen to me, just more, or a side bonus is the fact that you guys sort of like to chat with each other. And I know you're just saying that, Nancy, to be polite. You would, as I said many times before, I could shit into a cup. And you would find it interesting. I'm not going to do that, by the way. We won't be seeing shitting in a cup, but we could probably sort of just replicate it. There it was. I dropped a turd. There we go. So what are we saying now? 1 hour 53. So that was tonight's topic, project Looking Glass. As I said, I can't even remember what I talked about. And it was only a few minutes ago that we finished that presentation, only this afternoon that I recorded it. As I said, I'm not exactly 100% and still got a lot of shit going through my system, so my apologies if it wasn't the most enthralling of shows, but we will be following on with this at some point. I guess I could always delete later if I wanted to, but as I said, you guys do enjoy your little community and get together and chatting with each other, so that is part of the purpose of doing this. Yeah, no, don't worry, we're not going to be doing it, Maiden, but you could sure as hell bet your bottom dollar if I spent 2 hours shitting into a cup, Nancy would be there, all emojis. Oh, cool, Shah, very interesting, Shah. Emojis, 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 purple love hearts, emojis, funny girl holding her head emoji. Oh, look at the poo. Love you, Nancy. There you go, sweetheart. But we are going to wrap this up tonight, as I'm starting to zone out a little bit and getting slightly groggy, so fingers crossed for a night's sleep. Cup of TSP. Oh god, yeah, I could also piss in a cup, I guess. That would be entertaining, or try and piss up a rope. But trying to be a little bit humorous in the last couple of minutes, even though my mind is pretty shut off. I hope you have a good night tonight. Well, it's been months and weeks and years since I had anything really that sort of was what I would call a good night. I'll just be glad if it's a night that isn't as shit as the 376 nights previously. That would be a small mercy. Yeah, shit tea. See, Maiden's already making the fucking thumbnail. Never mind. Anyway, guys, what is it? 55 couple of minutes. Oh god, Nancy's putting her emoji spells on me now. I'm sure as hell not going to be sleeping. But that is something also, you know, it's been very weird that sometimes I'm at a point where I can't keep my head open, and I've even been out like sort of smoking. I'm leaning against the wall and am I going to fall asleep before I finish? And I sort of come in, get under the covers, and boom, the minute you hit the pillow, it's like you've just led on an adrenaline injection. Just got magic. Well, they are some perfect videos to watch if you've got the munches, I guess, although maybe not. They might make you even more hungry. But why not go and watch a couple, give yourself some inspiration for a midnight snack, which is something I might do as well. Get a little bit of a snack, a late supper, and hopefully a full stomach, steaming hot shower, fresh pajamas. I might get that night's sleep I so am craving, but hopefully, overdoses aside, we will be back with you tomorrow night at 9. Well, thank you, Martha. I'm going to do the same in a second. Going to roll and smoke one for myself. One last thing I will do before I head out is pop the tip jar in the chat for anybody who wants to chuck me a buck or two for my trouble. As you know, this is my day job now. I'm not exactly doing a very good job of it. I'm pretty sure if I was my boss, I'd be giving myself a disciplinary warning and telling myself you need to be more alert when you your station. But luckily, I'm not that kind of boss to myself. There we are. But thanks, Glynis. Glad you made it, as I'm glad the rest of you that did watch. We never did find out who the 12 people were. As I said, I do think it is a little bit the case of the algorithm making things up, just like that one time that the show started with 13 thumbs down and we only had 4 people watching at the time. How does that happen? 13 people that didn't watch, didn't like it? I don't know. But we do know the algorithm plays fun and games. In last week, Doom, all 3 taken down for whatever reasons. As I am feeling tired, I'm not going to ask anyone what they thought was good about the show, because I can't even remember anything what we talked about, so maybe I might have to rewatch it myself to remind myself. Anyway, let's get our little dancing girl into place as we get ready to sign out tonight. So thank you all for joining me this evening at Reality Decoded. Once again, my apologies for the half-hearted attempt at a presentation and show tonight, but the politeness of you for saying it was an interesting show certainly makes me feel a little bit better about it. But hopefully, as I said, some sleep might do some wonders, and we'll be back tomorrow firing, maybe not on all cylinders, but certainly on more cylinders than we are tonight. So till then, guys, take care, keep it thrifty, may the force be with you, and most importantly, be excellent to each other, and we'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. Take care, guys.